Hello, let me check in with The Birthday Boys by Beryl Bainbridge. We've come to the heart of the novel, which I haven't actually read the final page of, but is the owner section of the book. We've been following different people on Scott um, on Captain Robert Falcon Scott's expedition to the Antarctica in 1911, 1912, 13. I'll take a look. This is the section. This is the owner section where we get the point of view of Captain Robert Falcon Con Scott. And interestingly enough, I would say it's the section that seems so far to be the most damning about Scott. Um, very much the section's petty officer Edgar Taft Evans, a kind of a lower rung guy in the expedition. He really respects Scott. He really sees him as somebody who treats him decently and is a smart guy. Dr. Edward Uncle Bill Wilson is his kind of closest confidant, a kind of very kind of religious, prudish kind of guy. Um, and then we get to Robert Falcon Con Scott, or I'll just call him Scott, the owner, as he is put. He is the one who is the leader of the group, and he's shown making a lot decisions in this section, which makes you really question. It's like, oh, he's making kind of misjudgments throughout this section, and it's like you can see, like, in this really harsh environment, that it's not going to take much to kill them, and indeed, that's what happened. We find out we know from history that this is the disastrous Scott expedition. um, they come to a hut. They've reached the Antarctic. They come to a hut, and a window's been left open. And Scott is furious because he figures that the Shackleton expedition that was there the summer before, they probably left the window open. And Shackleton, he says, like, he's never a guy for details, and never a guy for details. Flashing lights. And that, it's just typical that he would leave the door open when it's like such harsh environments where, stuff like that can be like the difference between life and death of having a shelter, proper shelter for the thing. Um, Scott, apparently really not a fan of dogs, using like the sled dogs in this environment. Does not believe in it, and they made the decision to bring ponies with them. And some of the most kind of the toughest things for me to read in these sections are the I think that's like, oh yeah, it's like these guys made a decision to go up here. Whether sometimes it's like, yeah, it's economic necessity. A lot of times it seems like they're driven by kind of their own very kind of odd um, desires, and kind of being outcast, a bit of feeling outcast, a bit of wanting to prove their manhood and empire and all that in an age where Britain was kind of rapidly declining in that. This is just pre World War One, which would definitely suck and strip a lot of the British resources from their empire away from them. Um, but you get to the horses and these horribly maltreated animals. Well, just being taken into this environment is doom them, and their suffering, I've got, is definitely the thing there. Just, and that they get the horses are going snow blind because they don't have anything on to protect their eyes, so they're going blind. They're getting, they're it's really, really terrible. um it's in this section we sort of start seeing exactly what kind of a guy Scott is. Somebody who really bottles up all his feelings. There's a thing in here where, his wife Kathleen, who seems to be kind of a bit of a bohemian by the day, says like, yeah, your stomach problems aren't because of indigestion, it's because you're bottling, you bottle everything up. Um, but and also just the sort of stuff of like it's you can this is a cool book in the sense that we hear a lot about the various partners of these men, and just exactly how how they feel about them going out. Kathleen actually seems to be one who's actually okay with what Scott's doing, but she very much has the bohemian idea, like if a baby's crying, you should just pick it up and cradle it. Where Dr. Wilson, who's the medical man, is like, oh no, need to do discipline. You need to, what is it? When I discussed the matter with Bill, who is, after all, a medical man, he was fairly scathing, holding that child mostly wept from anger and an unconscious desire for discipline. He, of course, is childless, which you can tell that neither of these guys were particularly held as children. They have this very much kind of like it's the cliched, I guess, British bottled upness, British emotional detachment, which isn't to say that they don't have tons of emotions, but they're fairly detached from them at all. There's interesting things here of the Oates. We hear a lot about Oates, and he is going to come up as one of the people in these sections. That is Captain Lawrence Edward Titus Oates, who is apparently a rich guy who kind of bought his way onto this expedition, but he also seems to be semi kind of realistic. They say, Scott is calling him gloomy, but actually I think he might just be more in the actual kind of realist camp of him saying like these horses are going to be dead. You need to that we should just shoot them now and at least we'll have the meat, and all their suffering will be at least for something, because you're just extending this out, and Scott refuses all this stuff. At least the next year they can be fed to the dogs. At least that way their suffering will have some damn use. But Titus gave the opportunity for Titus to remind us of the differences between family pets and working animals, because it's funny how these guys they don't want to talk about feelings or anything like that, but they have that British kind of fondness for animals. It's like it's that outlet for compassion and stuff like that comes to these horses they've dragged down to Antarctica, but it's like they have this kind of misplaced compassion for them now that they're going to keep them alive as long as they can, so they can suffer from that. But justifying my actions has been simply no good for morale. Like it or not, and God knows half the time I don't. Someone has to take the decisions along with the consequences, which does actually show. I mean, regardless of whether I think Scott is right or wrong, he is the guy who has to make decisions. This can't be a democracy. It can't be we're going to have discussions or work things out. He has to make decisions. It's going to, and it will indeed kind of lay on him what the fate of this place is in the end. It's his decisions that are going to lead towards this. They really do get a blow when they find out that Amundsen has. They got a telegram earlier saying that Amundsen, who had said he was going to be heading north, and says like had actually come back to make another run at the pole. They disparage them. It's like, oh, they're just doing it for the crass thing of being first to the South Pole while we're doing a scientific expedition. But you can tell that it just eats Scott up alive. Like the big thing of this thing, the big prize is who's going to plant that flag. And they have tons and tons of dogs. And he's gotten advice from people saying, dogs, you need to have dogs. And indeed, you watch the dogs on this stuff, and they're quite happy. They stop, they dig into a hole, and they pile on each other, and they can survive in this environment. Whereas the horses, they have to build like a wall for. It's these poor ponies. It's terrible. They have a section here where one of the horses, Weary Willie, he falls, and unfortunately the dogs are coming along at the time, and when the horse falls, the dogs just immediately set on them, and he